What's the dumbest case you've ever had on jury duty? 1. A young lady was at her parents', and the parents were fighting. Yelling, not anything physical. The wife says if the husband doesn't shut up she was going to call the police. So, evidently he kept on. And she picks up the phone and dials 911. The daughter grabs the phone and puts it down, and told them both to behave like you would with your children. So, they do. And everything is back to normal when they hear the police knocking on the door. The daughter is arrested for interfering with a 911 call. When this went to court, the state wanted her to get 6 months. We are all looking at each other, shaking our heads that something this stupid made it to court. Deliberation was very short, and of course she was found not guilty. 2 stories. I was being interviewed to become a juror. The inquiring attorney asked if you are shown pictures of the woman, taken at the hospital, that show her bloody and beaten. Will you keep an open mind if the defendant explains why he had to do that to her? I replied, why he had to do that to her? ? I was excused. The only time I was accepted on a jury, the defendant was being charged with DWI. The defendant was an older Hispanic man, and his story was that after work on Friday, he picked up his usual 12-pack of beer and 5 pounds of beef and went home where they had their usual Friday barbecue and beer. He had finished about half of the beer himself when his cousin called and said he was being arrested a few blocks away and to please come help him. The defendant said that he woke his roommate to drive him, knowing that there would be police, so he wasn't about to drive. Arriving on the scene, their car drove slowly past the cousin's car, pulled into a parking lot, and he got out of the car, from the passenger's side, and walked over to the cousin's car. The arresting officer put him in handcuffs and charged him with DWI because he smelled beer on his breath and was certain that he was the one driving as their car passed him. The problem I had was that the arresting officer said that his body camera wasn't working, so it was his word against the defendant. Folks, this was on a Friday night, in Inglewood, California. No officer, hoping to end his shift alive, goes on patrol unprepared. The officer's testimony on just about everything was not credible. I finally asked the other jurors whether they thought that the officer would leave for patrol with an inoperable gun or a broken Kevlar vest. The defendant was very open about drinking a 12-pack every Friday night after work while they enjoyed his barbecue. He was also very credible that he would have walked there before driving the few blocks, knowing that there were already police on the scene. Initially, most of the jurors saw a tall, white police officer against a chubby, old Hispanic man and were convinced that the officer had to be telling the truth. I was able to convince the other jurors to acquit the defendant simply because the officer wasn't credible and they hadn't proven their case against the defendant. 3. The case was about a man who entered the home of his separated wife and tortured her. He placed a shotgun in her lap and jacked a shell in and out of it over and over. She was convinced that each time, he was going to kill her. This went on for 8 hours. Their teenage son was a witness. We went into the jury room and quickly all agreed that the man was guilty. Then, we had to set the sentence. It seems like we had a range of 6 months up to 5 years in prison. We all chose the maximum sentence of 5 years, except for one elderly lady who thought that we should hang him. We repeatedly explained that hanging was not one of the options we were given. She finally agreed, but with some rumbling. When we delivered our verdict and sentencing, the jury was polled. The crazy old lady said that she didn't agree. The trial was declared a mistrial and the bad guy got away with it. Crazy old broad, mentally impaired elderly lady, got him off and she wanted to hang him. Wow, over 8,000 upvotes. This a new personal best for me. Thank you all for reading my stuff. 4. The defendant was an elderly black man, who raised hogs on the same farm as his father and grandfather. The city had built a water treatment plant, a very smelly one, at that, next to his pig farm, which had been absorbed into the city limits. Then they charged the poor man with raising hogs in the city limits. The innocent verdict didn't take long. 5. A woman voluntarily admitted to stealing thousands of dollars from her employer. She then voluntarily wrote out a confession and signed it. After the employer fired her, she sued to get her job back and all back pay. We ruled against her. Her lawyer asked us, after the trial, why we ruled against her. I told him, she's a thief and should have been grateful that she wasn't in prison. 6. A Hispanic man was up on burglary charges. A brown man walking on a sidewalk in an affluent neighborhood. The police were driving by and pulled over to talk to him. While on the sidewalk talking, they saw a home's belongings on the grass area, condos. The burglary squad was called. He was arrested. No neighbors saw him. No fingerprints were found. Jury discussions. Blind vote. 2 of us not guilty. The rest obviously guilty. Took the 2 of us a couple hours to convince the others, excepting one, that he was not guilty. That man believed that the police would not arrest you unless you were guilty. Very scary to me. I was semi-wealthy but did not dress the part. Finally he voted not guilty so he could go home, not because the man was not guilty. We tried for another couple hours, gave up and just took the unanimous not guilty verdict into the judge. Dumb case, made me mad, it was so wrong. A man arrested because he looked like he did not belong there. Okay, perhaps cause for a harder look. No evidence found, not one piece. Why was he even arrested or the court's time and money spent? 7. I was on a jury where the plaintiff was suing the apartment complex for back and neck injuries sustained when a sliding screen door fell on her. She claimed she had constant pain in her back from it. The first day of the trial, she wore 4-inch spike heels. No one with back pain is going to be wearing 4-inch heels. Needless to say, we found in favor of the apartment complex.